Welcome to the Life Engineering Podcast. My name is Gabriela Embon, former chemical engineer, relationship coach, and author. In each episode, we'll uncover the wisdom, strategies, and tools to help you build thriving relationships and purpose-driven careers. My wish is that something shared in this space touches your heart, brings clarity, or gently guides you toward what you need most in your life right now. Thank you for being here. Let's begin now. Welcome back to the Life Engineering Podcast, where we decode what it really takes to build a life of no regrets. Engineering a legendary career and legendary relationships. And today's guest is someone whose wisdom I believe every woman entrepreneur needs to hear. Laura Zavelson. She has an MBA. She's a corporate finance SKP turned business guide for Gen X experts. Those powerhouse professionals who are done waiting for permission and ready to build thriving independent businesses. With over 25 years of experience, Laura helps coaches like us, consultants and experts find clarity, stability, and financial freedom. So they never have to job hunt again. But today we're zooming in on a topic that so many business owners, especially women, struggle with. And that is pricing. So let me ask you this. Have you ever felt that knot in your stomach when it's time to say your price out loud? Do you catch yourself second guessing whether you're charging too much or worse, not enough? If you nodded yes, stay right here. We're not just talking about money. We're talking about the beliefs that shape our businesses, our confidence, and our capacity to lead. Laura, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We're excited to hear what you have to share with us because, as a coach myself, many of our listeners are self-employed as well. So we can wait to learn from you. We're grateful that you're actually helping women build businesses that are not only profitable, but grounded in self-worth and clarity.
Absolutely.
So, Laura, I'd like to start by naming the elephant in the room here because pricing is emotional, especially for women. What have you seen in your work when it comes to manuscripts and chronic undercharging?
Well, just that it's an epidemic. That I think when you and I first talked, I mentioned a statistic that I had read that is that male coaches generally charge 30 to 40% more than women for the exact same work. And I think that some of that is that we don't have the same networks
Mm-hmm.
that so we don't have quite the same insights into what people are willing to pay because we might not have the networks to ask those questions. We also don't, it's not a common topic for women to talk about. There's a perception that it's taboo, it's not polite. And so we don't always share with each other what we're charging and maybe what we might be able to charge, right? So we don't have those kind of knowledge, we don't have that knowledge to leverage. And then I think there's definitely a lot of undercurrent of self-worth and those kinds of money scripts that get in the way. And so what I end up seeing with a lot of my clients is they come to me and they say, well, what about this number? What about this number? I was thinking about sending them email and charging this much. What do you think? Rather than saying, this is my business and this is what I need to be charging in order to make the amount that I want to make.
So I have two questions following what you just shared. I do want to know, how do I know what is that number that I need to be charging, right? In order to make the money that I need to make, how do I figure that out? But before we get into the more practical side of it, you talk about manuscripts, you talk about the money stories, and that we are wired differently than men. I so agree with you. I also seen when I network in the beginning of my career, mostly with women, how different that was when I started networking more with men, more so today. We do business differently. Can you tell us more? What are those undercurrent beliefs that you have uncovered, those stories, those scripts that you were talking about?
Well, I think that I think your audience is pretty self-aware, right? As a group of coaches. So I think that it's the same thing. Our money scripts are developed at a very young age. It's how our families talked about money. It's how your parents related to money. And you may have experiences in your life that have shaped your relationship with money, right? And so when we suddenly have this situation where as coaches we're selling us, right? We're the product. And so to try to put a value on yourself, that becomes very difficult. And that's where I think a lot of the emotions play in, is because it becomes self-referential, right? And you're thinking, well, do I have the qualifications to charge this? Do I personally feel confident enough to charge this? And so we can get really in our heads about the money part, but the reality is we're running a business. And so we kind of have to find a way to separate those two things, what we charge from this idea of what is my personal value, right? I
Mm.
think if we shift the question more to what do I need to be charging to create a sustainable business, that can help us reframe um, the numbers in our minds.
Is that the enough number you talk about?
Yeah, so the enough number I talk about is really saying let's get away from, you know, how you value yourself. Let's sort of take yourself out of it to some extent. The way I think about it, enough number is it's in your gut. Because I think it's one of the places that most of us are kind of honest with ourselves about money, right? Because it's this amount that covers your business expenses, including taxes, including healthcare, including putting something away from retirement, right? I think of all of those as business expenses, sort of not the way the tax guy thinks about it, but they really are. They're what it costs to be in business for yourself. So you pay for all of that, and then what you have left over, right? Your enough number is where you feel really good about yourself and about being in business. Like, it makes entrepreneurship worth it, because there's a lot of headaches that go along with running your own business, right? So we want you to have enough money that you feel really good and can say, yeah, this is totally worth it. And that's the floor. That's the baseline, right?
Okay.
And then what you make over that, for some people, that means it's not just the enough number where I feel good, but maybe it's a little bit more so I can hire other women, or I can offer scholarships for my service, or maybe you just pay for the little luxuries in your life, right? You should feel good about striving for that, not guilty about it.
Oh, I love that reframe. You should be good about striving for that, not
Yeah.
guilty.
And I'll just say one more thing about the enough number. When you figure this out, it makes it so much easier to figure out your business strategy, right? Because you're not throwing spaghetti at a wall and you're not saying, oh, I'm going to make whatever I make this year, right? You say, look, this is how much I want my business to make so it will sustain me and what I want to do. And then you work backwards from there. Then how do I create a business that gives me that life, that amount of money, and obviously the flexibility and the meaning that we're also looking for as entrepreneurs. So you kind of have to throw all of that into the mix. But I do, that's how I think about it, is in terms of this enough number.
Yeah. Do you get any resistance from women to charge
Um,
their real number, their real enough number?
so it's two things, right? I think it's usually an eye opener when I start when I have people start thinking about their businesses that way, right? Because most people haven't. Most people don't say, this is the target, and so I'm going to work backwards to build my business. Most people say, oh, here's a product, or here's what I do, and I'm going to assign a price to that, and then we're just going to see what happens. This is being very intentional about saying, this is the kind of business and life I want to build. And then what am I going to need to do to get there? So, but yes, I think sometimes it can be a little scary when you do the math. And we're going to talk, I think we're going to talk about this a little bit later. But when you start to say, wow, this is how much I'm charging, and this is where I'm trying to get. And wow, I'm going to really need to sell a lot of these to make that happen.
Because I'll tell you, there are so many messages that we get exposed as coaches. You know, you have to reach the seven figure and the multiple six figures, and you have to charge a package of 10K for whatever, 3 months coaching. So I can see how it's easy to lose that sensibility to what's real, what makes sense, what's expected. Don't you think?
Oh, I'm so glad you said that because, that is something that makes me crazy every single day is there's so much noise out there trying to tell you what you want and implying that you're not successful unless you want that and that your
Yeah.
business is
Yeah.
doing that. And
I
that
love how you
is,
say what you want. Like people are telling you what you need to want.
yeah, exactly. That's BS, right? Look, if you want to build a business that makes, I don't know, $150,000 a year, and that's good for you, and that lets you have a flexible life and enjoy yourself and work with people that you like, great. You have a successful business. You have just like absolutely embodied the definition of success, right? For you. Everybody gets to have their own personal definition of success. And I think that's one of the biggest what's the word I want, like disservices, right, that
That's
social
right.
media does to us is it shows us all of these things and makes us feel less than because we're not meeting some arbitrary goal. And the thing is, what you don't see on social media is all these people who are like, oh, I have $1 million. I made $1 million. Well, look, if they spent 999, $1,000 to make that $1 million, then they're not very successful. But you can't see that. And
That's
so, we really have to use our critical thinking on what we see out there before we start reflecting that back onto ourselves.
right. I agree with you 100% on this one. It's it's very dangerous to let all these voices into your head, especially when you're starting or when you feel good about what you're creating, and then you start feeling okay, maybe I should want more. Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. And, it's hard. It's really hard to sort of, figure out what you should listen to and what you shouldn't listen to. And that's why I think it's so important to have a community around you,
Yeah,
um, of other entrepreneurs, of other people who do what you do, because that's what's going to keep you sane.
absolutely. We run the academy as the community,
Yeah.
and we've been doing continuous education calls and coaching calls twice a month since 2015. We never, and I know because I run those calls, so I can definitely say we never talk about the numbers. We never talk. We talk about getting to the next level of your fulfillment. Yes, you decide what that is. We never brought the concept of six figures,
Yeah.
multiple six figures. So that was never even mentioned in our calls.
Yeah, and that's so smart because, again, you get to define success for yourself. And that is one of the things I think, having started several companies over the years, that's something I had to come to. Right. It's something sometimes you learn a little bit later in life. I think I started my first company in my early 30s, and I definitely had let a lot of outside voices tell me what success should look like. And when I started this company, I've started it much like I just described. I've been very intentional. I know what I want. I know where I want to go. And so I'm intentionally building this business to get there. And if I get there, great. Then I've done it.
It's lovely. Good for you. Yeah, but it does come with time, with maturity and wisdom. Absolutely.
It helps.
So, so let's get more tactical now. You mentioned that many business owners have a revenue gap. What is that, and where does it come from?
Right. So that's what I started to talk a little bit about earlier. So if you figure out your enough number and you figure out, okay, this is where I want to go, this is my definition of success. And then we look at what we're charging. A lot of times when we take the amount that we charge and we multiply that by how many we would need to sell to get to that enough number, there's a big gap. So
Mm.
I had a client who had a limited number of hours a week that she could work because she had like a kid in middle school and another one in high school. And so when she was thinking about her business, she came to me and she said, well, if I charge $150 an hour and I work 20 hours a week, that's $3,000 a week. And so that's 150K a year. And that would be a fine business. And I'm like, wait. First of all, not all of your hours are billable, right? You have to spend time marketing. You have to spend time selling. You have to spend time, looking at your numbers. There's a lot of things that need to happen in your business that aren't billable. And so you can't just say, if I have 20 hours a week to work, I'm going to make X amount an hour, right? That doesn't work. And I think that that's a mistake a lot of people are new to business make, is they think that they're going to bill way more hours than it's actually possible to bill. The other thing is that equation that floats around, the internet, if you type in Google, how much should I charge? They usually hand you an equation where you're only taking 2 weeks of vacation a year. Well, first of all, I personally would like to take more than that. Second of all, if you have kids, you're automatically taking more of that, right? Because you're on vacation every time they're on vacation. I mean, it's not vacation for you necessarily, but depending on the age of your kids. So I digress. But what I mean is, that's what I mean by a revenue gap, is that there's this gap between that enough number and how much we're actually charging and how many we need to sell. So what people also don't think about is the idea that you can sell one thing for $1,000 or 1,000 things for $1 and make the exact same amount of money. So you have to think about what is the business you're in, and you are going to dramatically, as a coach, simplify your business by raising your prices, because you're going to have to sell fewer clients.
So how do we do that? How do we start charging more?
That's a good question. Um, I think that there's a couple different things that need to happen. Um, I think one is use, sort of that inside out pricing method, right? Start from the end and work backwards. Um, then I think we've got to normalize the conversation around
Yeah.
how much money we need to be making, because the definition of success is a business that's profitable and can sustain itself. So you got to treat your business like a business and not a hobby, right? Again, and that's going back to what I was saying, where, I see a lot of people who are sort of like, well, this is my, I charge hourly and I'm just going to put it out there and we're just going to see how much I'm going to make this year. That's not how you think about a business that
So there's
needs to
a shift in mindset that we have that
yeah,
will take
exactly.
place.
Exactly. That's a good word for it. That's a good way to think about it. I think the other thing, and this is a mindset thing as well, you have to get to a place where you can think of your financial performance as data versus a reflection of who you are. So if you start looking at your numbers on a regular basis and you get a little bit more comfortable with it, because a lot of people don't even want to look. Like
Yeah.
they really, I a lot of my clients come to me and I say,
How
what
much
is
do you
it?
make?
Pardon me?
You ask them how much do you make and they don't know.
That not only do they not know how much I make, but how much does it cost you to be in business every month? And they don't
Mm.
necessarily know the answer to that either. And so it's like, well, we need to look at those two things, and we need to look at how much you're bringing in and how much goes out every month. And then that's going to give us a target for like what break even looks like. Right. And then we need to start adding on top of that. But again, if you set a financial goal and you don't get there one month, it's not that you did something wrong or that you're a failure. That's just information you can use to do something different. And so we need to start looking at other metrics besides just the money. So another one that you can look at is, what did you learn? Right?
Mm.
So if we can take learning and have that be a unit of measurement as well, then if we have a launch and it doesn't go the way we want it to go, or we didn't enroll as many clients, or somebody didn't renew, right? Then we step back and we say, okay, that's information. what do I need to change in my business to fix that, versus saying, oh, I didn't make my number and this is I'm a failure, and should I even be doing this? I mean, that, those the kind of the thought
Yeah,
cascade,
self
right?
talk. Yeah.
And then I think the last thing I'd say on that one is what we were talking about before: surround yourself with women who talk openly about money. Again, use your community, use your community that you have, right? To open these conversations and to say, what is the range, what do you charge for your programs? I think the more honest we can be with each other about how much we charge, the more we can learn from each other and support each other.
I hear you, and this resonates strongly. And yet, I can feel almost some of our listeners, saying, well, that sounds really nice in theory, but in real life, what about the market expectations?
Oh, that is
How do,
such a, yeah, go ahead.
no, no. How do you help clients find that balance, right, between what the market will bear and what they actually need to earn?
So there's multiple components to that question. One is, yes, absolutely, there are ranges of what the market is willing to pay for various services, but there's nothing that says that you can't change the way you package your service or product that will allow you to charge more.
So, can you
So
give us examples of that?
Mhm. Yeah. So let's just start with if you're charging hourly, right? So if you're charging hourly, not only is there an amount and somebody's going to go, wow, that person is charging that much an hour. Is this really going to be worth it? Right. And then if you put, three together and you give them a discount, now you're really getting people thinking about, oh, how much is this person charging an hour? Right. If you simply reframe that as a package that offers a tangible result at the back end, right? Then people are no longer thinking about how much does this person charge an hour. They're thinking more about it like a product that they would buy, to
Benefit.
take off the shelf. They say, oh, I'm paying this much to be more confident in dating. I'm going to pay this much to learn how to find out what career I'm a better match with than the one that I'm currently in. I'm going to pay this much to get to whatever I have to meet this aspiration, to solve this problem. I'm paying this much to solve this problem, not I'm paying this much per hour. So when we start to reframe that, we actually can start to push the edges of what the market will bear. And we change the way people think about purchasing from us. So you're actually changing the way someone thinks about working with you. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I can hear some of our coaches asking, they would say, yeah, but I don't know. So let's say I sell a package of 12 sessions in order for you to find your ideal career path.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know how many sessions it's going to take because I don't have a set program. I work with a person session by session, so it might not take 12 sessions, it might take 8 sessions. How do I go about it? Because we do offer for our coaches a program on how to create their signature program. That's easier then because you have a program, you know exactly what you're doing in every call. But when you don't have that, how can you implement what you just described?
Oh, no, no. I'm a huge fan of signature programs. I 100% believe that that's how you make money as a coach or a consultant, is you build a signature program. Because I think that it fundamentally shifts the way people think about working with you. And that then they think they're purchasing again a solution to their problem. They're not just purchasing an ongoing relationship with you. And by the way, it doesn't mean that you can't sell follow on work, right? It just means that when people are first entering that relationship with you, you have a program you can offer them. So you're already shifting the way they think about working with you. And then your follow on program, maybe that is an ongoing series of sessions, but now you've already made the shift. You've already helped them shift their belief around what it is that they're buying from you.
Wow, that's powerful. That's very powerful. You know what you just said, people are buying a solution to the problem, not a relationship with you. I took notes of that. We're going to share that with our coaches. Actually, we have a community call tomorrow, so we're going to share that.
Wonderful. Yeah, no, I firmly believe that any business, I mean, and I've worked with a lot of different kinds of businesses. You have to know, you have to start with what problem you solve. People buy things to solve problems. I mean, that's what gets people to take out their credit card. So you have to understand what problem you're solving, who you're solving it for, and preferably this is pretty specific. You got to be specific. It can't be everybody. That's not the right answer.
Yeah.
And then you have to understand why it's important for that person to get the problem solved.
Yeah.
You know, why is it bothering them? What happens for them? What do they get, or what goes away if they work with you?
Yeah.
And if you can understand those things, that's kind of the foundation of that signature program we were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then I would add one more thing to that, is that if you can then establish yourself and your approach as unique and different around the way you solve that problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, um, you're kind of setting up you're establishing your credibility and building yourself up as a thought leader or an expert, and people are willing to pay more to work with experts.
That's right.
So there's a lot of benefit that comes along with creating frameworks and programs.
Mm, absolutely lovely. Thank you for that. What would be, I have a question. I want to ask you more about the tool, the gift you have to offer. But before I do, I have one more question. We talk about how to increase our prices. What would be the impact of undervaluing ourselves
Yeah. So that is such a
beyond
good
just
question.
making less money,
Yeah.
obviously?
Well, right. So there's when you raise your prices, first of all, that is the fastest way to increase your revenue. Raise your prices, right? It's a direct impact on profitability, right? But here are the knock-on effects. So the most obvious is that if you chronically undercharge, there's less money in your business, right? So that means there's now less room for you to take risks and to make mistakes. There's less room to experiment, less room for you to create better products and services for your clients. Right? If you are always like stretched to the last dime and you have to take every single person that shows up on your calendar, you are not putting yourself in a position to run your business strategically. And there's less cushion if things happen in the economy that you don't control. And if we look at the world around us right now, there's a lot of uncertainty. So if you're chronically short of cash, you're like undermining the potential of your business. So
Mm,
that would be like the first one, I would say. The next one is like the impact on your clients. So let's think about this. And again, I know all your coaches will like innately understand this because of what they do. If you charge more, there's a psychological effect where your customers actually value it more. And when they value it more, they're going to do the work. And if they do the work, they're going to get better results. Right. So you're creating more of an emotional investment in working with you. And that's going to get them better results, which is going to have a flywheel effect, because if you get better results, then people are going to recommend you more. So, you know, that there's definitely something in it for your clients if you raise your prices and you value what you do at a higher rate. And then I would say, and this is important, if you're going to raise your prices, you actually may need to change your client profile a little bit.
mm.
And but if
So
you
let's
go,
talk about what's
yeah,
required. How do we prepare to because you open this this door in a way, and I want to make sure we go there all the way to the end so we can provide a real solution for our listeners.
mhm.
Let's say now they listen to you, they're ready to raise their prices. What do they need to do this properly and be able to own it and embody that new price?
I think that that's a good question. So first of all, if you have existing clients, you need to think about whether or not it makes sense to raise your prices working with them. It may not. You may just say, these are legacy clients. I charge them what I charge them, but I'm not doing that anymore. This is what I charge going forward. The nice thing, and I'm going to hit this nail on the head a lot of times, is if you have a program, it's very easy to raise the price of your program, right? You just say, and actually you can use it as a marketing advantage. You can say the price is going up in 30 days. So everyone who wants to enroll at the current price, come on in, and then you raise your price. So that you can actually use those kinds of things to your advantage as well. So I think that there's deciding what you're going to charge, deciding whether or not you're going to apply that to your current clients, or whether you're only going to apply it to new clients. And again, if you have a program, I think raising your prices can be a little bit easier. Now, I started to say before, one important thing to think about is it time to shift your client profile a little bit? So I'm going to give an example of one of my clients that I'm working with right now. So she was focused, she's a consultant, and she was focused on working primarily with very early stage startups. Well, early stage startups historically don't have any money. They're trying to
Mm.
raise money. And so a lot of them were trying to pay her in stock or whatever. And I'm like, that's not worth the paper it's written on, right? And it's going to be a long time before you would ever see that revenue. And she needed money now. So what I said is we need to shift your client profile. Let's move up in the food chain a little bit to people who have already raised money. You have the skill, she had the skills to work with that group of people as well. And so we reframed her niche
Mm.
and got her working with people who could afford to pay her what she needed to make. And so these are strategic questions you need to be asking yourself if you want to build a sustainable business. Because at the end of the day, if your clients can't afford to pay you enough to keep you in business, then you don't get to keep
No,
helping
that is,
people, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Did I answer that question?
Yeah,
Oh, good.
yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. Um, Laura, I know you have for our listeners a generous offer, a free tool that they can. I personally think it's gold. Can you share more about this spreadsheet you have for them?
Absolutely. So I built a spreadsheet that just makes it really easy for you to figure out what your ideal hourly rate is, working backwards using that inside out method that I talked about. So what you'll do is you'll put in the amount, what you think your enough number is, right? And it can be anything, and it's between you and the spreadsheet. And you put in how many weeks of vacation you want to take,
Okay.
and you put in how many hours a week you either want to work or you have to work, right? A lot of people, that constraint is decided for them. Um, and it will put back out your hourly rate. And I offer this spreadsheet not in a way that I think everybody needs to be charging hourly, right? Because I've talked about the benefits of having a program. But I think it is useful as you start to price various things, as you start to think about how much you should be charging for your program and the value of your time. It's useful to see, sort of on an hourly basis, how do I need to think about valuing my time to get to where I want to go, to meet my goal? And I think the number might surprise you.
Mm.
And again, I'm not. And if some portion of your work or your practice is hourly, this can be a really interesting tool for you to have in terms of building out, your services.
Fantastic. We're gonna have the link in the show notes, so you don't miss that.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for your generosity.
Absolutely. I'm happy to do it.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for being here and for speaking so openly and honestly about something that it's delicate, especially for people in, as we call, soul-centered businesses, right?
Yeah.
You giving us both the mindset shift and the tools to move forward. Is there anything else you would like to share?
I think just that, if you are a heart centered entrepreneur, right, or in a soul centered business, I know that you do what you do because you want to help people. And the reality is, you have to be able to pay yourself enough to sustain that so you can keep doing the work you were meant to do. And so we need to keep your talents and your gifts in circulation. And the only way to do that is for you to build a sustainable business. And so that is the reason that I'm so passionate about helping people figure out how much they need to be charging to be able to create something that can go on for many years so you can help many people.
That's so well said. Thank you. Thank you. I do have another question that just came to my mind right now. I'm thinking about the academy and our coaches. It's almost like I'm hearing their questions. Do you mind if I ask one more?
No, go right ahead.
Is this applicable for beginner coaches, right? Those who just graduated and they're starting their first steps into, building a clientele. Do you have any specific advice for them when it comes to pricing? Because that question is often asked during the certification program.
Yeah, and I think it's a good one. And I think here's the thing: if you have education and expertise in the area that you're coaching in already, um, I don't necessarily think you need to do a lot of free work. And what I see is people are saying, oh, I want to do, they start charging way too late. They do way too much work for free. So if you are really practicing, if you're just starting and you want to offer some free sessions to just sort of get your feet under you, I think that's okay. Or if you want to offer discounted sessions to start because again you're just starting, that's okay early. But don't let that go on for too long, right? I think that you are able to help people sooner than you think. I think again, this starts to go back to um, these ideas about value and how we value ourselves. So early on, think about what that enough number looks like. Now, you might not. Very few people get to that enough number their first year in business. As a matter of fact, I would say pretty much
Mhm.
nobody gets there in the first year of business, right? But think about the business you're trying to build, and then set yourself a goal for some percentage of that the first year. And first year to 18 months. I mean, honestly, it takes a while to get to stabilize your revenue as a coach, if ever. I mean, frankly. Um, but it takes longer than you think. So don't wait too long to start charging at least something. And then maybe just have an idea where you just say, all right, I'm going to raise my prices every three clients. Set, make it systematic so you're not all in your head about it, right?
Yeah, I love that. Slowly, but in a way that you can embody the coach within you. Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. I love that. Thank you so, so much, Laura. This was gold, really.
Oh, I am so happy to be here.
And to everyone listening, if this episode sparks something in you, share it with your fellow entrepreneur who needs to stop undercharging and start owning their worth. Until next time, keep engineering a life of no regrets. Bye for now.